Well, I guess we'll go ahead and start. I think people just run late. But thank you for joining us. I am Suzanne Sierra. I'm the Senior Program Manager for the St. Louis Mosaic Project. And for those of you that are not familiar, the St. Louis Mosaic Project is a regional initiative of the World Trade Center of St. Louis. And we are under the umbrella of the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership. And so what that means is that we are very focused on growing the region through economic development. The goal of the Mosaic Project is to transform St. Louis into the fastest growing major metropolitan area for immigration by the year 2025, and to add 25,000 new foreign-born immigrants to the region against the base in 2016. And we do that with several programs, our signature programs, our ambassadors. We have individuals, companies, and universities that all at no cost join us in our mission of welcoming the foreign-born to the region. And specifically for today, we focus on immigrant entrepreneurs, foreign-born entrepreneurs. And so, our goal is we are a staff of 2.5, and my colleague Bomi Park is here with us today. And so we don't provide super deep programming, but what we do is that we act as a connector. And so when it comes to entrepreneurs and foreign-born entrepreneurs, if you think about, St. Louis really kind of being a small town and a lot of people know each other here. When you're a foreign-born newcomer to any area, but to St. Louis, and you're trying to start a business and you just really have no idea where to go, who to talk to, who could serve as a mentor, who could point you in the direction of funding, or if you need warehouse or office space. And so our goal is really to work with our regional partners and make those connections for you. And so today, as we celebrate and kick off International Women's Month, International Women's History Month, I'm really honored to have 3 amazing foreign-born successful women entrepreneurs with us today. And so the goal is that you're going to hear from them. I have a couple of questions that I will ask each of them. And then we'd love to hear from the audience. If there are budding or existing growing entrepreneurs in the audience, please speak up, ask your questions in the chat, and we'd love to hear from you. So with that, I am going to start our program, and I'm going to I'll start alphabetically by first name. I'll start with Angela from Karuna Beverage, and I'll ask each of you to just give a brief description of your business, how long you've been in business, and where you are from originally and how you ended up in St. Louis. So Angela, and then we'll go to Pravina and Sophie.
That's great. So hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you all here. It's super exciting to have this opportunity to share a few words with my fellow female entrepreneurs and business owners, or whatever careers you are pursuing is great. Just being a woman and doing something that's contributing to the society. We should feel proud every day, right? Not just as a mom or as a nice wife. So I started Karuna Beverages in 2017. So I started selling in one local Whole Foods stores. That's the largest one in St. Louis by the Galleria. I was lucky enough, I think back then, that was right before Amazon acquired the Whole Foods. And so, their store still had lots of, in terms of decision power to bring in local products. They see a good fit, innovative products. So I got in, luckily enough, 2 of the 5 drinks sold out on the same day. And that just gave me a boost of kind of encouragement. And then since then, we just keep growing. It's easy to say, but it's really hard to do. I'm sure each of you understand what I'm saying. Not just everyday hard work. You have to pretty much be very smart and be humble. At the same time, I would say have tons of compassion. By the way, Karuna means compassion. So the reason I started Karuna Beverages, obviously is very different than most of the beverage entrepreneur in this industry. Most of them are young folks, just want to sell their brands or product line to big companies like Coke or Pepsi. Versus I started from my background, years of background in the medical research, business development, as well as my passion has always been since I was little, always in traditional holistic medicine. So, I already have a very in-depth knowledge about different herbs, remedies, at the same time also understanding the research data behind many key functional ingredients. So I could, basically put the line together. I did I'm still doing pretty much every aspect of the business myself. Of course, I have partners in sales, distributions, but formulation, R&D, how to design production. I also love mechanics, weird enough. So I love to design new production process, a little bit, messing around with the machines to make the production efficiency just, good. So, but I would say is, again, I truly believe if it is something you believe, like that's something I believe we can use food to help people to live healthier, happier. And you just have to have the knowledge. Of course, you cannot just, have a dream, but you don't have the knowledge or expertise to carry it out. You need to acquire that knowledge, that expertise. Then, I think if you work hard enough, there's a good opportunity, your dream will come true.
Awesome, thank you. And I look forward to hearing more about your journey. Okay, Pravina, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you came to be in St. Louis, and a little bit about your business. Thank you.
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Pravina Pindora, co-founder of a company called Tallyfy. I'm originally from the UK. I was born there in London, but my heritage is Indian and sort of East African, because our families were taken from India and put in East Africa by the British Empire to work for them. So they were British subjects. And then once all those countries got independence, India included, and East Africa, families moved to England. And that's how we ended up in England. There is a huge Gujarati Indian population in London, and my husband's from there as well. And we moved here about 6 years ago now, after we won something called an Arch Grant, which some of you may be familiar with, but it's a grant that's given to entrepreneurs all around the world. It's equity-free, $50,000 for entrepreneurs. And so it's quite competitive. So we won that, we moved here. We're absolutely in love with St. Louis, we're still here. We just bought a house, we've just had a baby here. And my company is Tallyfy, which is a workflow automation tool for businesses. And put simply, it's basically allows businesses to document and track their procedures. So for example, if you are onboarding a new customer or a new partner, there might be multiple steps that you go through. How do you make sure it's always done consistently? So first of all, you need to document the process so that someone else that you hire knows how to do it. And secondly, what Tallyfy does is not just document things, not just digitize things for you, but to automate the doing of that process for you, especially in a remote workforce. So think task automation. So that's what we do, and we sell to all kinds of companies. So it's a web application.
You simplified that very easily, because I'm not a technology person, and I understood what you were saying. So
glad to think so. Okay.
Thank you, Pravina. Okay, Sophie, same question.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sophie, and I'm the founder of Expedition Sub-Sahara. So I came to St. Louis about 15 years ago, and I quickly learned that a lot of people don't actually know where my country, Senegal, is. So, which is very strange to me, since Senegal and the United States have such a very dynamic relationship as far as history. But then I learned also that what they think of as Senegal as Africa as a whole was very narrow. It was mostly the story of poverty. And that is a part of African history, as is a part of human history. But I grew up in a place that was so vibrant and so colorful and so happy. And I couldn't imagine growing up thinking that everybody in this part of the world is just sad and poor. And I went to school and hadn't really thought about being an entrepreneur, except it's in my blood. It's what Senegalese people do, because when you grow up in a place that doesn't have much, they have to innovate in order to sustain, right? So I am Wolof, that's my tribe. In the Wolof, we weave, is what we do. So your grandmother passed it down to your mother, who passes it on to you, and so on and so on. And it's a woman's trait. So I figured, why not take this thing that's inherited by me, this thing that to me is just another thing that we do, but here it's art, it's fiber art. Who knew? I was a fiber artist. I was gifted with the gift of fiber art through my heritage. And why not take these baskets that are so vibrant and so colorful and so beautiful and so functional and reintroduce it into my new St. Louis home in a way that was radically respectful, in a way that didn't use poverty to sell that thing, in a way that taught a little bit about that culture, in a way that was so respectful that once you have it in your home and somebody walks into your home and is going to pop out because they're so beautifully colorful, you can tell them something about that place, about Senegal, about that object, in a way that changes the narrative. So Africa and Senegal is no longer about poverty and poverty porn, but about the vibrancy and the colorfulness of its people. So we started about 3.5 years ago, and we've been just chugging along, and I'm an artist at the Foundry Art Center. And yeah, that's our story.
That is beautiful. I love that. It's a conversation starter, and it gets, we talk about having, conversations, just as a way to open up the topic of differences. And so you're creating beautiful pieces that allow you to do that.
Thank you.
Building on that, Angela, tell me, because I know you were a student and you got your PhD. So when did you know that entrepreneurship was for you?
Oh my gosh. I think it just comes from my family's gene, kind of like what Sophie just said. Well, I was born and raised in China and moved to this country because I come here for my PhD education. That was 25 plus years ago. I lost track, so long. I view St. Louis as my adopt hometown already. I just feel like this is my home. But my family is a quite interesting mix. My mom is from northern part of China, but my dad was born and raised in Indonesia. So his family is a mix of different races and and they all in business. So each of my relatives in Indonesia, they have their own business, some really large, some in different fields, some small, you name it. And my dad actually was the outlier. He escaped around his family and didn't want to be a business person, and then went to China because he wants to contribute to his ancestor. He has the Chinese blood, right? And then after the Chinese, I'll say the revolution in the 50s, early 50s, he went there, just had a dream to build his motherland, even though he had never been there. So he had to learn the language from start, scratch, and then end up become an engineer. But even he was just keeps getting his rank, getting higher, become one of the highly ranked civil engineer in the country. He eventually actually established quite a few different companies, but that was still under the government's direction. And then he was brave enough, just broke the tie and started his own kind of consulting business, working with mainly Japanese on many large projects. So just watching him, how he did that, was very inspiring to me. On the other side, I just had the fun of run like little shops when I was in college. That was back in Shanghai, Fudan University. I actually opened the first flower shop on the campus. Had nothing to do with my major. My major was biochemistry, and nothing to do with, selling flowers or flower arrangement arts. Had to learn some flower arrangement arts because I love art, but on the other side, I just try to be creative to find ways to attract customers. Of course, even organize events in the student organization, just try to promote my product. Back then, just simple flowers, right? So that was just something always deep in my mind. So I come here, I did many years of medical research. Like I said, I went to WashU, got my MBA, so spent way too long in school, right? And working pharmaceutical company in business development. Again, business development. I evaluate thousands of different projects, why they're good, why they suck, which one we should acquire, which one we should develop. And so that really helped me in terms of building my own line, because people, every time when I talk to industry folks, they didn't believe I'm kind of one-man show. I'm like, well, because I happen to be, I'm fortunate enough to be old enough or whatever, experienced enough to have those knowledge. So I didn't have to, I feel like, waste money to hire someone that I don't even know to kind of help me to build my brand. But this is the year actually I started to have really good private investors who are the industry highly respect experts. So it won't be just me myself moving forward, but it's still a great journey, and I'm looking forward to carry that further.
Thank you, Angela. Awesome. Pravina, you also were doing something before you struck out on your own. You were a nurse, correct? And that sort of informed your business idea. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I was a pediatric nurse for about 10 years, working in England, also building hospitals in Africa, and I did some research in Australia as well. So it was a lot of fun, traveling, and of course working with children and their families was extremely rewarding. And the reason why I went into nursing was because I come from quite a conservative background, and also a background where education was actually a privilege in generations before me. I was the first girl that actually went to university. And when I talk about a conservative background, I'm talking about, my father was hoping that I'd get a good job and get married. And that's as far as I would go. And then he would be pleased with that. Ambition is not really pushed, especially in women. And I adore him. He worked really hard, but even he couldn't even afford to go to university. So the thing that was drummed into me for the first 15 years of my life was job security. You study hard and get a job, because that's the only way you're going to survive. Entrepreneurship was, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know anyone that started a business. We were never encouraged to, because that's taking a risk. And taking a risk means you might not eat that evening. It's especially in Africa and India. That was certainly not the case in the UK over the last few decades. And so I that's exactly what I thought. So I passed my exams, my ACTs or whatever the equivalent is, and I decided that, okay, what do I enjoy? I love working with children. I absolutely love biology. Put that together and became a pediatric nurse. And I think I was very good at it. And I took that as far as I could take it. And then I met my husband, who was a serial entrepreneur, trying out a million things. So I think he had started maybe about 25 businesses in the time that I knew him, in the first 2 years that I knew him. And none of them did very well, but I admired him trying, right? And then I was getting quite, nursing can be quite emotionally taxing, and you have to do night shifts. And I would never see my husband. And then we started talking about an idea, and this idea was about streamlining processes where I work. And we decided to just kind of drop everything and start that. And luckily enough, we started getting funding pretty much from the start. We won a couple of competitions, something similar to Arch Grants, but in Chile, in South America. So it's called Startup Chile, which is a grant program run by the government of Chile, who give away grants to entrepreneurs around the world. You just pitch your idea, and if they like it, they give you money, and you move there, hoping that you would not stay there, but inspire students and people at universities, because they also have a problem where people are just wanting to work in jobs and not start their own businesses. And that's not good for the economy. And so that's my entrepreneurship journey. I think that was your question. Right?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you.
That's how I ended up.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just sort of underscored a point, which is that we know that foreign-born individuals are more likely to start their own business, often because of need. But so thank you for that story. That was inspiring, and good for you to learn the why not philosophy from your husband, who started 25 businesses. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Sophie, let's hear from you. I know that you have a photography background, and how did entrepreneurship choose you? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, so Senegal is a country of entrepreneurs. It really is. There's no there's no one industry there. There's no Budweiser, or there's no one industry that produces, thousands and thousands of jobs there. So a lot of people, in order to make ends meet, they use the crafts that they do, whether you're a woodsmith, I believe that's how it's said, or you're a weaver, or whatever that was passed down to you, that's what you use. Now what Senegal is, it's beautiful aesthetically. And we get a lot of tourists from Europe because they understand how beautiful and how just happy and fun the country is. And so a lot of people back home use those skills to make things that European travelers love to buy and take back with them. So that's a huge part of our economy. So actually, I came to the United States for school, but how did I pay for that school? I don't have student loans. I've never had student loans. How did that work? It's because my family decided that I needed an education, and they did what they do, and that they created businesses that was then able to fund my education. And how they did that was just by selling things. It wasn't these huge companies. It was small companies, and they decided as a collective, as a unit, that investing into my education was the best way to do it. So I learned the most valuable lesson is that little by little, the bird builds her nest, right? You don't need, entrepreneurship is so beautiful because you don't need to do everything right. You don't need everything. You don't need $1 billion to get started. You literally just need the drive. And I learned that from my family. You just need the drive, the thing pushing you to say, we're going to do this for her, or we're going to do this for myself. And through that, I was able to learn, hey, I can do anything. So when I came here, I went to school, became a photographer, was successful at it, decided actually the bigger part of Expedition that I try not to talk about too much because I don't want it to be another narrative of let's help these poor people, is that we have a fund, an education fund, a STEAM fund. And that fund is 20% of all of our sales goes into that fund. And to date, we've been able to raise over $100,000 into that fund that is going to build a girls' STEAM school in Senegal. But we try not to talk about that too much because we don't want to get back to that. Let's help these poor people. We want to just appreciate the art form, right? So when I said, hey, how can I do this? Fiber arts. Okay, cool. How can I use fiber arts? I can do what my mom did to get me into school. I can do what my parents did to make sure I didn't have student debt. I can work, I can use these two hands, and I can just drive, and little by little, the bird builds her nest.
I love that phrase, little by little, the bird builds her nest. That's beautiful. So you have such a can-do attitude, which all entrepreneurs need. And Pravina and Angela, you've also talked about that. Talk a little bit specifically, since we're in St. Louis and we're talking to St. Louis entrepreneurs, tell me about your experience as an entrepreneur here. What have your challenges, and where are you getting a lot of support? Just talk about the ecosystem entrepreneurially and how that has come into play as you build your business.
Yeah, that's a great question. I always view as immigrant here in this country. I mean, especially in St. Louis, because we're the center of Midwest, heartland. I view, because, many of you here, we have, we're the minority, not the So, you know, obviously immigrant plus minority and being a woman, you know, when I went to business school, less than 20%, let's face it, less than 20% of the MBA students' body was made up with female. So there's already a dramatic difference compared to the law school or medical school. And then out of those graduates, MBA graduates, only a very small percentage ever raised to the level, you know, we all wanted. The reason we went to the business school, you know, for all kinds of reasons, right? I mean, we're still fighting for that, you know, many reasons, you know, we probably choose ourselves. I would say just side aside being an immigrant, you know, foreign born, you know, your skin color, this, that, we all face challenges that everyone else face, you know, being an entrepreneur, you know, where do you come up with you know, your seeding fund, right? I mean, yourself, your family, your mom, your husband, yeah, family saving, whatever. You know, how do you use that fund to reach the next level? What's your milestone? You know, when you grow bigger, you know, your problems start to, you know, start to face more challenges. Of course, you know, you depends on you know, you need to set different goals. Then you need to have the resource to reach them. What I see, the plus side, being a foreign-born entrepreneur in the Midwest, is actually, I do feel people sometimes are kind to us. You know, they kind of feel like, oh, I appreciate you came to this country without knowing the language, without knowing the culture, and especially in the industry I'm in, you know, consumer product industry, you know, you have to understand the culture, right? I didn't grow up here. I didn't know any of the movie stars, the pop music, all this kind of stuff. So for me, it's really hard, you know, just to put the ads together because I don't know psychologically what consumers are looking for. But on the other side, people do appreciate that. So when you achieve something, they feel like, wow, that's amazing. You could do this. So they give you lots of credibilities. On the other side, it is true, you know, in my industry, especially in the consumer product industry, I'm sure Sophie probably feels the same, is people do, there's a stereotype, right? Like Asian business person making products for Asian community, like, right? They feel like that way. Well, is your drink for the Asia, you know, kind of Asians? Well, not really. Actually, the majority of my customers are not Asian. They're everyone, you know. So how do you break that stereotype? Is we have to do it. You know, like people would stereotype female certain type, you know, we're more caring, loving, you know, softer versus men, and then, you know, age, you know, even your body shape, right? So we have to find ways to overcome them. And I feel like learn from water. Think about water is so soft, almost like there's no shape. It's so soft, there's no shape, but water can conquer pretty much any hard obstacles. Think about when water flows down a river, there's a hard, sharp stones. Over the years, that stone becomes very round. It gives away to water. The water first flow around that sharp stone and still reach its own destination. So if you're saying that obstacle is there and it's hard, therefore you're deterred, or you just start to like, oh, I need to fight with you because you are so this, that. Oh, of course, you can spend 90% of your energy fighting with that on all the negative side, or you can find ways to get around or even utilize it to achieve your goal. So I will say it all depends on how you view it.
Yes, that's great. Yep, overcoming stereotypes and roadblocks, and you just got to keep moving forward, right? Pravina, how would you address that question in terms of challenges, opportunities for you entrepreneurially?
So we arrived here in St. Louis with Arch Grants, and with Arch Grants, we were introduced to so many people. But beyond that, you know, and if it wasn't for Arch Grants, you know, there's so many organizations like Mosaic, Venture Cafe, so many networking groups that were going on at universities that we went to, where you just had these spontaneous collisions with people where they would be willing to try your product or give you feedback or introduce you to someone that was willing to try it, or an investor. And so that was incredible about St. Louis, which I think it is unique to St. Louis, where people are just altruistic, willing to help you for nothing in return, which it took a lot of time to get used to that. about St. Louis, because in a big city like London, and we spent some time in San Francisco as well, in Silicon Valley, it feels like somewhat, you know, in return for an introduction, you owe them something. Whereas here, I would pinch myself when someone would introduce me to the CEO of a big company that could potentially buy Tallyfy, and you know, they didn't want anything in return. It's just, you know, we're here to help, and that's what's special about St. Louis. I think you were asking, you know, what was it about St. Louis that helped you? And so that has been incredible for over the last 6 years, and I think. I don't know how that's playing out with the virtual world right now. So if people are starting businesses now where you can't actually walk into Venture Cafe and walk into certain places, and I know there's tons of people online right now, and I'm hoping that we will have the same collisions that we would have had if I had walked out of a room doing a panel where I would meet 10 other people and we would exchange cards. I hope we have the opportunity to do that here, because that's what made our business, whether it was feedback on the product or whether it's an introduction to someone else. So that has been incredible about St. Louis. And in terms of challenges, I would say, you know, I think talent in certain areas, to find talent locally when it comes to SaaS is what we do. You know, it's a tech company. Slowly over the years, we're finding that the more and more people are being aware of this space and training up in SaaS. But otherwise, I think that's, definitely been the biggest challenge for us in terms of finding talent for Tallyfy. But we're willing to train, and we're not moving anywhere. We've spent time in London and in San Francisco, and we don't want to go anywhere. We want to stay here. And there's so many reasons for that. You know, everything from, you know, cost of living to just the nice people, right? And I think, St. Louis is certainly the place to be. And I think there was another part to your question beyond St. Louis. I'm singing St. Louis's praises because that's everything to us.
That's great. No, that was my question, and I'll turn it over to Sophie to ask the same thing in terms of, you know, again, how has your experience been here? What do you talk about the ecosystem or challenges that you're seeing?
So I've been in St. Louis half of my life now. So I am a St. Louisant. Being a St. Louisant means a lot of different things. It means Emo's Pizza is the best pizza ever. But beyond that, it also means that just like any other place, it has its beauty and it has its not so beauty. And loving a place and living in a place means you have to take it for what it is. What is so beautiful about this community is that if you ask, someone will answer, and they will do their absolute best, from my experience, to help guide you, or at least give you the next connection to that question or to that answer that you're looking for. Anytime I've had a problem, and maybe not even a problem, just a growing pain, you know, something that I need to get over a hump, and all I have to do is ask, whether I ask on social media now that we're all virtual, or back, you know, a year or so, I asked, you know, I went to a networking event and I just asked a question. I'll get an answer, but beyond that, I'll even get an email saying, hey, this person might actually be able to help you further than I can, which I think is very unique, because I've lived all over and I don't think I've ever felt that kind of, it's not, I wouldn't say community because it's not tight-knit like that. It's not that we do everything together. Is that if we have the knowledge or the power, from what I've been able to see, we're very giving with that knowledge and that power and that help. And I absolutely love that. I mean, that's how I actually got into the Foundry as an artist. You know, I was doing a pop-up and one of the fellow artists came up and I was telling her about some of my growing pains, and literally the day after that, I got an email saying, hey, you might want to look into this. A month later, I had a studio space in the Foundry Art Center. So I think that's the beauty of St. Louis, is these micro connections that together kind of weave such a beautiful net that when you fall, there's a net there catching you. you know? But just like everywhere else, there are its challenges. Being a foreign-born person, I think sometimes a lot of people in St. Louis were born in St. Louis and have stayed in St. Louis their entire lives. And because of that, sometimes it's hard to think outside of the St. Louis bubble. And that's been a challenge for me as a person who thinks very much, not even just outside the St. Louis bubble, but just outside the bubble in general, of how society could be better. And I think sometimes we don't think outside of our own literal bubble. As much as I love this city, you know, even within the city, we have our own little bubbles. And you will travel around those bubbles and you realize that, oh, I just left my bubble and now I'm in a bubble that looks nothing like me. And as much as it's beautiful to be able to go up to talk to somebody, then you feel a little bit less comfortable because you just left your own little bubble. So I think for me, that's been a challenge because I'm used to being able to always just melt into a place. And with St. Louis, you don't always melt. But I will say that every single time I have fallen and I've needed a net, St. Louis and its community has always provided a net and has always helped me move forward into the next chapter, into being Sophie, into being an entrepreneur and Expedition Sub-Sahara.
Yeah, that's excellent. And you know, you mentioned, and as you started to talk about how, you know, you touched on the slogan of you know, Missouri, St. Louis, the show me state. You know, show me how to do something. And you know, for sure, there are a lot of people here that are willing to help. And I think you all, the three of you, have referenced that. And so I want to ask you now, I do want to save time. Let's see, how are we on our time? It's about 5:40. I do want to save some time for questions because I've seen a couple of comments in the chat. So I guess two questions, and they're a little bit different, but what one piece of advice would you give a budding entrepreneur? And I know that there are at least a couple that are on here because they put that in the chat. And then what is your sort of, or no, how can we help you? How can we help you advance your business? So now you have a captive audience here of 31 people. So if you have to say, gosh, these are the one or two things I need or would like to do next with my business. So the first is a piece of advice. And then the next is one or two things that the community, that Mosaic, that we can help you in advancing your business. And let's start with Angela. Yes.
Sure. Sorry. Well, I will say my advice to, you know, being recently just quite some events and got this kind of questions a lot. But I will say, to be successful as entrepreneur, which is the backbone of this country, is to me, personal experience. Of course, I feel like I just always want to be a lifelong student. So that means I want to constantly learning. Doesn't matter how many degrees I have or what, you know, how many years of, you know, experience I have, I can still learn from everyone around me. Learn from, you know, the people in my community. Of course, my products also out of Missouri State, but also learn from people from different regions, you know, different states, and we're looking into ex-US markets now. So, you know, people in other countries as well. So the learning never ends. Doesn't matter, you know, which stage of business stage you are at. The other thing is, I truly believe for entrepreneur, the business will not die if your own passion is still there. I think most times the business dies because you give up. There's so many hurdles, so many difficulties. I can tell you, when I first started, there were many days I was basically saying, why I'm doing this? You know, why I'm building a factory and I have to go through all the FDA regulation, you know, little things. I have to go out to learn everything in the food safety industry, get different license, you know, get to be a student again, you know, taking all those crazy online courses, hours, you know, after I was tired of, you know, studying so many years in school, you know, but And then even have to dealing with construction code, fire code, of a factory, or, what kind of paint you can use, light. Then it's about getting into the markets. Then I learned it's brutal on the shelf space. Little brands can easily get killed in one day. Or most retail won't give you time more than 3 months. If you don't show performance in 3 months, you're out. Sorry, they don't care how much money you invest. They don't care. So there are many reasons for you to say, that's it. I have my kids I need to take care of. I have a family. I need to save money for my kids. Enough is enough, right? But are you strong enough to keep up whatever you believe? And if you believe it's for a good reason. Again, if you believe it's not good for a reason, give that up from day one. I always believe that. Think about it. What's the true incentive you're doing this? If you are not adding value to the community you are serving, you live in, don't even waste your time and other people's time. Because your business may do well for 5 years. I have seen rare case 10 years, you will never survive in the long run. You can study any business history, just study how many businesses past 20 years mark, 50 years mark, 100 years mark. You will see what I'm saying.
That's excellent. So always be a student, always be open to learning, and grit and perseverance, which you're all talking about. One thing we can help you with to advance Karuna. So buy your product.
Of course, buy a product. I have to say, like everyone else here, St. Louis is a very supportive community, compared to, like, I think the city, I don't like to travel because of the traffic reason, and also how it's actually LA. It's so crowded, and I feel like New York, they're kind of cold. You know what I mean? Unless you really know them really well, your friends, then they can be extremely helpful. But just on the surface, you feel like, seems like he's viewing me as his potential enemy already, even before we start to talk, right? So I would say just keep up the good things about St. Louis people being very friendly. I think very generous. They are never stingy in terms of giving out their knowledge, what they know, which is extremely important in an environment for entrepreneur. Is you count on that knowledge that other people provide to you so you can thrive. Without those knowledge, in my case, I can be, who I am right now. Impossible. So I think just St. Louis can definitely even do better with that. Maybe through more events like this, or, I think Mosaic Project is wonderful. And I just hope the government or whatever, the community will spread more words about it, so because there are still many people who don't know about it. One thing, maybe like even the business school here in different institute can just put like flyers or whatever, let their international student know, hey, there's such project here, if you're ever thinking about starting a business here or in your native country, you probably can learn a few things from them.
I think, Suzanne, you might have just muted yourself. I don't know if you're talking to us. Is everybody muted?
No.
Okay, good. Maybe I should just answer the question. Is that okay? Okay, so the one piece of advice I would give an entrepreneur is talk to other successful entrepreneurs. Do not talk to your friends when it comes to your product. So if you have an idea, don't talk to your mum or your sister or your friends, because they will always say you have a fantastic idea and go run with it. What you want to talk to is your potential customer, really, if you can, before you get started, because I wish we'd kind of done that earlier on. And I wish my husband had done that very earlier than when I met him, before I met him, so that he wouldn't have failed at those 25 businesses. So just get honest feedback, and ideally speak to a customer that's probably using a competitor, and they will hopefully give you honest feedback. If they don't buy you, or if they say this is not for me, ask why, and then pivot. And that's exactly what we did, and I think that's what's taken us this far. So that would be my one piece of advice. And then your other question was, remind me, girls, what was the second question?
One thing we can help you do to advance.
Right. So I think Tallyfy sometimes has a hard time of in marketing itself. Not everybody understands it, and I think we just complicate things where we don't need to. So if you could just go to our website, tallyfy.com, and it says it there, TALLYFY. I remember the spelling. Go there, tell us if it makes sense to you. And if you're working in a company, or if you have your own business and it's, a small, medium, largish size business that you work for, let us know if you would use Tallyfy. And if not, email me and tell me why. And that way I can use that in our pitch, because I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is dealing with objections, and just making sure that Tallyfy makes sense to everybody, not just the C-suite that is in charge of processes at the company. It should make sense to everybody. So that would be my little ask today.
Wonderful. Sophie, what about you? Advice, and what one thing can we do to help you advance your business?
Advice. Little by little, the bird builds her nest. It's such a simple concept, but you never see a bird drop a what's it called, a twig, and then just gives up. She's like, I'm done. Like, we're done with this house. This nest is finished. No, she goes and picks it up, or she goes and picks up another twig and she builds her nest. And if I was to give anybody advice about anything in the world, it would just be keep going, keep moving, and don't be afraid to fail. I fail all the time. I'm the queen of failure. I fail so much that people think I'm successful because I never let it get me down. I just realized that failure was just a little stumping block that I fell on, but I fell on it, and now I'm on it, and now I can go to the next one, And failure is something that I actually think in American society is kind of villainized a little bit. Nobody wants to be a failure, but it's actually, I'm not saying embrace failure so you can be a failure. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that failure is only a failure if you stay down. But every single time you get up and you ask somebody a question, even if they don't have the right answer, you've made a connection that has got your brain working, that is going to lead you to your answer. And that is enough. So for me, I always just say, little by little, the bird builds her nest, because it doesn't take a day or two, but you'll get that nest. And then you have a home. And there's nothing more beautiful than that. And ask, I won't ask you to buy a basket, and I won't ask you for, I think what I'll ask for is that the next time you tell a story about any part of Africa, but let's say Senegal, because that's where I'm from. Let's say you've met a girl from Senegal, and she told you a little story about Senegal, and that the people there are colorful, and they're happy, and they can make anything with their two hands. And you share that story, and we flip this narrative of poverty, and we make it a narrative of resistance, of persistence, of happiness, of beauty, and of color. And we make the continent of Africa a little bit more than the story of poverty, but the story of resilience. That's all I ask for.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. I love that. Well, thank you all. We have probably about 9 minutes, and I'm sorry, but when I actually got bumped off because of my technology issues, so I lost my string of comments in the chats, but I know that there was a woman, somebody named Kay. I don't actually see her on the Zoom anymore, but her question, she said that she was a Filipino entrepreneur, and that she had trouble, finding people like her. And, I will just say to all of you on here who are foreign born, Mosaic is about connecting, making connections. And I believe some of you, Angela might have talked about connections, and really that's what we're here to do. We have a lot of contacts in the community. If you are looking for support to build to get connected with a mentor. That's really what our role is. So please reach out to us. I'm going to put my email in the chat and we can get you connected. You know, failure is not an option. I love the comment about that. And the only way you fail is if you give up. So please don't give up. Does anyone, I want to kind of open it up to questions that anyone has. Correct. Someone in the chat says failure should not be seen as a stumbling block, but really a stepping stone. Here.
I have a question for Sophie. Sophie, I know your business is mostly online, so how does being in St. Louis affect your business?
I don't know if it's affected my business as far as, sorry, can you elaborate on that?
So do you feel like it's a good location for your business since your business doesn't really, it's not limited to where you are?
Yeah, I think it's a great, absolutely great location for my business. I think, I just think the cultural connections that you get here. Did you know that there's a St. Louis actually in Senegal? The biggest city in Senegal is St. Louis, and it's a sister city of St. Louis, Missouri. And I don't think my business can thrive anywhere it is. And it doesn't really matter. It needs what I think makes it what it is a community, and there's no better community than being right here in St. Louis. So we've grown quite a bit, but still every single year when we do our taxes, our #1 place where we have to pay sales tax to, which means most of our sales comes from, is the city of St. Louis. And that's because St. Louis has decided that Expedition Sub-Sahara isn't a Sophie project. It isn't my staff. It's a St. Louis business. It is home. Like, this is home, and this is always going to be home. This is going to be, because it was through my experiences of being Senegalese in St. Louis that this idea, that this marriage even came. So St. Louis is a huge part of Expedition Sub-Sahara, and I think it's a great place for it.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Any other questions? And I have a couple of comments also. So Sophie and Angela both came here as students, and I just, I love that we have a young, perhaps budding entrepreneur or someone who might be interested in entrepreneurship. I'm just going to call her out. Sorry, Nora, but she is a high school student, if I'm not mistaken, and her dad told her about this panel today. And so I love that, because I think it's never too young to start thinking of entrepreneurship as an option. And so, I'm glad you're here and you've heard from these inspiring women, and I hope you do continue to pursue that. And, you know that there's a big community here. And I just want to reiterate that, the entrepreneurial ecosystem is very robust here. And Pravina referenced to that, and I think Angela as well, and Sophie probably tapped into it too. There are a lot of organizations that can help you refine your idea, that can help you pivot if you need to, that can provide boot camps if you're just starting out, or again, just need a refresher. So I would encourage you again to contact me. I'm going to ask Bomi to put in the chat a tab on our website, on the St. Louis Mosaic Project website, for entrepreneurs, that lists all of the entrepreneurial support organizations that are there. Pravina mentioned Arch grants. There are several new accelerators and funding tools for foreign-born immigrant women entrepreneurs. There's really, really quite a lot to take advantage of. It may seem daunting, but we're here to help you. And I also just want to acknowledge all the women on this panel. I think it's so empowering and inspiring. I want to acknowledge my boss, Betsy Cohen. She's the executive director of the Mosaic Project, and she is inspiring. She's a supportive leader. She's a champion for all women. She has led the St. Louis Mosaic Project that focuses on helping foreign-born women. I hope that all of you have cheerleaders like that. Consider all of us your new cheerleaders. There's Betsy. So anybody, let's see, there was a question here. what is your experience of supportive male allies? Well, it's wonderful. I will say that our organization is led by our CEO and president is Rodney Krim, the president of our parent organization. And the St. Louis Mosaic Project is a regional initiative of the World Trade Center of St. Louis, which is led by Tim Nowak, who's the executive director. They are stupendous allies and they are champions for women. I will say, someone said earlier, St. Louis is a very altruistic, supportive environment. We work with corporate leaders at all kinds of different companies and nonprofit organizations and community partners, many that are led by men. And I'm here to genuinely tell you that they want and they recognize the power of women. So, you know, I think we're very lucky to be living in these times. I think the fact that COVID has, you know, created this virtual world that we're now operating in, but it has really, I don't think it's stopped anyone, to be honest with you. I feel like it has led to different connections, but, you know, really continued connections, and we can connect with people around the globe. So, you know, thank you all for joining us, for taking time out of your end of your day to be here with us. I just want to open it up again to any comments, or put your comments in the chat. We're here for you. We see you. We celebrate you. Everybody, thank you. Unmute and ask, or if not, thanks again for coming, and we hope to see you again soon.
And Nora, I have to say, you're doing the right thing. You're already ahead of probably many of your fellow students, because being an entrepreneur should start very young. You need to learn the lesson from young age and never be afraid. Right. It's easy to join a corporation and just have a, you know, steady income. I have to say, you know, you also have challenging things and frustration coming from that world. I've been there for quite, you know, a number of years, but being an entrepreneur is definitely totally different. Yeah. You know, coming from a large corporation, you know, background as well, you know, I have to say, yeah.
Excellent. Well, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to stick around a little bit in the Zoom room if you want to chat a little bit more. Anyone else, feel free to ask a question out loud or put it in the chat, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Happy International Women's Month, Week, Year.
Yeah, it should be every day, right?
Every day.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Like I told my kids, Mother's Day should not be just in May.
I agree, I agree.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Sophie, I did want to ask you.
Oh, yes.
I've been hibernating for 2 years. I haven't really left the house. I've been with my baby and doing things around here. And so there's stuff going on in the city. I've heard about this foundry. Tell me about it.
Oh, yeah. So it's actually in St. Charles. And
oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay. There is a foundry. There is a yes.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I was going to say there is a foundry in the city. Has it opened yet? It's not quite open yet, right?
I have no idea. I thought you were there. You'd tell me.
No, so this is an art gallery, and there's about 12 artists upstairs, and downstairs there's 2 galleries where they do shows, rotating shows, and it's a really cool place if you ever venture out this way.
Oh, absolutely, I'd love to.
Yeah, there's all sorts of artists from all walks of life, fiber artists, painters, photographers, everything. And
now there's the one in the city. Do you know, are they both focused on art, or is it open to other types of entrepreneurs?
I believe, I could be wrong. Somebody correct me, that the one in the city is more of a retail space.
I see, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not, I don't believe it's more focused on, this is a very, very art focused space.
Yeah, I love it. Perfect for you.
Yeah, and you actually have to jury into it. So you have to like present your work. And so, but I think the one in the city is a retail space, which is also cool. It sounds, I want a retail space there as well.
But I think the one in the city has just been delayed, like many things, because of COVID. But the bones of it are up, and yeah. So
yeah. I also wanted to say, so Betsy Cohen, like 3 years ago, when I started my business, I went to a networking event, and my friend Helena knows your boss and dragged me. So I would call myself an introverted extrovert. Like I can be an extrovert and I can be an introvert. And she dragged me. She said, you need to meet her. She's so cool. She's the best person ever. And you can tell her about your idea and she can help you. I'm telling you, she can help you. And she dragged me and I went up to her very, very nervous and I shook her hand and I said hello. And she was so warm. She was so receptive. And she told me it was a beautiful idea and that there was some sort of assistance that I don't know what she said, but I just remember leaving that that conversation feeling like that was beautiful. Like I just felt so confident to continue. And actually she gave me her card and I never followed up because I'm good at that.
Sophie, I don't think she realized that she just left this Zoom room, but she like messaged me privately on Zoom and said, these 3 women are amazing. And I don't think she realizes, you know, she has shaken your hands. So
yeah, and then she made me
happy to let her know.
I will never forget how she made me feel. She just made me feel like I could do anything in that moment.
Well, yeah. and that's really what infuses Mosaic, you know, is really our, I mean, we are unique in that way, in that we collectively, and because we're part of the larger economic development engine of the city and the county, we are connected, and Betsy specifically too has so many connections, and there's just, you know, we want everybody, we want you all to succeed. As you've said, I mean, entrepreneurship is the backbone of the economy. And so if we see someone struggling, it is our imperative to make sure that you get the help that you need. We connect you with somebody that can help you. And you know, I'm so fortunate to work for such a helpful organization and such a great resource. And you know, and we don't provide deep programming. It is literally introductions to others that can help. So really that's the role we play. And for anyone else who's still on here, call us, text us. We have a social media page. We're individually all on LinkedIn. We have a Twitter. Our goal is to amplify all of the success that everybody has. We want people to stay here. We want people that have left to come back. So we're on the same, show. We want to show everyone else that St. Louis is the place to be.
And I just want to add to that when we first arrived, I think the first ever drink that we had with anybody over here was with Betsy in the minus kind of 20 degrees weather Celsius. Gosh. And she turned up to welcome us, and that was amazing. And ever since then, we've had introductions to business owners that we could partner with. But beyond that, I think I remember feeling like 2 years in being in St. Louis, it was 2 years in, and I just felt homesick. And I wrote to Vin at Mosaic when he was with you guys at the time. And I just said, I'm feeling homesick. Do you know any British people in St. Louis? And he wrote back, and he made those introductions immediately with 3 other families in St. Louis. I met up with all of them, and we're best friends now.
Well,
and so you could do something like that too, just.
Well, and that's such a good point, because even things like that, connecting you, to a favorite kind of ethnic restaurant, to a person that can remind you of home, to a cultural institution that might have an exhibit that that you're longing to see. Yes. And Kelly Moore with the International Institute. Hi, ask your question.
Hi, everybody. I was so happy that my sister could watch my children so I could join this call. So I'm not an entrepreneur. I work at the International Institute as the External Relations Manager. So I want to thank Suzanne and Bomi for putting this together. My question is sort of personal to Sophie, because I spent some time in Mali, West Africa, and I'm wondering if you know anybody who makes really good peanut butter sauce. I could probably make it, but I am not the best at it. But I am searching for the best West African restaurant, if you know of it. So please, please help me. I mean, I know Afriki Lolo. I know these men who I haven't asked them yet, and I have friends from Togo, but I'm really looking for that peanut butter sauce. Do you
Yeah. I
know what I'm
that's
talking about?
sauce. Oh yeah, I do.
So,
You're talking about Moffat, right?
well, in Mali, we called it tigga digga nah, but I don't
Tigga
know.
digga. Oh, you're talking about tigga digga. So I can't say that I do, but I do know this nostalgia because I too am obsessed. But I can't say that I do know anybody who has tigga digga.
Oh, okay.
The fact that you even know tigga digga is like so impressive to me.
Well, the thing is I like to think I'm a connector, and I love Mosaic. Obviously, we partner and we work with them very closely, but I wish I had a lot of money where I can support all of you all, but I will tell stories about you, and I will look you up tomorrow, and I will go to Tallyfy, and I'll try to tell you what I think I can give you some advice. And now I need to go drink Angela's drink, but thank you for all of your information, and I will definitely try to put you in my brain space and connect to where I think I need to connect. But if anybody on the call wants to tell me about a West African restaurant, that too would be great.
Kelly, you sound desperate for this recipe.
This food, listen, I could probably make it, but I want it to be authentic. I want it to be like what I had in Mali. Like,
so Chef
my Togolese friend made me some, and it was too spicy, and it wasn't the same.
So Chef Simone at Shukad might actually be able to help you. She makes mafe, and that's using tigga digga. So she might be able to help you. I'm not sure. She probably will hate me for even saying it. But
I you know her.
Who is she? I don't know her.
So she owns Shukad and the Grove. First of all, I need to go to Shukad and just have some sweets. It's just delicious.
Oh, I know where that is. Okay, yeah, I live over there. Oh, she owns that. I didn't know.
You guys are making me hungry.
I know.
Okay, I
Dinner
know.
time.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, everybody.
Stop, you're super curious about that peanut butter sauce.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, I'm like, what is that? I never heard of all that.
Oh, look. So look, there's some information in the chat. There's some information in the chat.
Got to check that out. Seriously.
Yeah. All right. It looks like I'm getting nudged from Venture Cafe that I think they need to wrap up here. But a million thank yous. And Pravina, I want to tell you, I looked at your website as I was researching your background, and I found it to be so consumer friendly, so easy to understand. So I was not aware, I didn't know a lot about it beforehand. So I'll definitely share it. I think it's a great website, and what you offer seems so, I know for me, I was like almost thinking I was going to reach out to Gomi and say, we need this.
We do. We need all of their products.
Anything to make process more efficient. Oh my goodness. I'm all for that. So all of you need to check out Pravina's website, and Angela's beverages are delicious and they're great for recipes. And Sophie, I can't wait.
Sophie's coaster.
Yeah.
I can't wait to decorate my house.
All right. I think maybe we should really go.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
So much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.